Everywhere you go, tragedy is prevalent throughout society. Whether it's the death of a loved one or a catastrophe, everyone experiences tragedy at some point in their lives. Because of the normality of tragedy, tragedy has developed as its form of drama as early as the late 6th century BC. Aristotle, one of the most influential figures in Greek philosophy, defines tragedy as the imitation of an action that is serious and also as having magnitude, complete in itself. He continues, "Tragedy is a form of drama exciting the emotions of pity and fear." However, as time progressed, the elements of tragedy evolved and morphed into something Aristotle could not have foreseen. To generate a newly considered definition of tragedy, we must first examine how tragedy has changed over the years. In ancient Greece, tragedy was a popular and influential form of drama performed in theaters. Greek tragedy can be defined by these elements. It should evoke pity and fear. The tragic hero is a person of high status and must be essentially admirable and good. A chorus is present, and the hero's demise must come as a result of some tragic flaw. Additionally, according to an article by von Shalesky, the Greeks had a theocentric vision in their tragedies. Destiny is character. The tragic character's fate cannot be changed. The play Oedipus Rex is a perfect example of Greek tragedy. For instance, the main character Oedipus is of high status because he is born into royalty and becomes a king. Due to his tragic flaw of pride, he unknowingly kills his father and weds his mother, which is what an oracle of the gods prophesied in the beginning of the play, indicating the notion of destiny as character. Ultimately, he realizes that he has killed his father and married his mother, so he blinds himself, evoking pity and fear upon the audience because it shows that even kings can be defeated by gods. In the mid-1500s, the traditional tragedy influenced by Aristotle developed into Elizabethan and Jacobean tragedies, which Shakespeare wrote in King Richard II, Macbeth, Hamlet, and King Lear. As the City University of New York states, unlike Greek tragedy, Romantic tragedy disregarded the three unities action, time, and place by having multiple plots and locations, mixed tragedy and comedy, emphasized pity over fear by usually having the protagonist and most of the cast die at the play's end, and held the notion that the character is destiny, meaning that the individual can change his fate, but the decisions he makes are solely responsible for bringing about his demise. On the other hand, like Greek tragedies, Elizabethan tragedies often include protagonists of high status who have a tragic flaw. Modern tragedies shift even further from Aristotelian and the Elizabethan tragedies by expanding its definition. According to Dr. John W. Hodgson, in literature, a tragedy is a plot in which the protagonist, because of some inherent flaw in his or her character, dies. Tragedies now just include stories that imply a central action, a crisis which tests that flawed part of the protagonist's character. As Sarah Freeman states, what consistently remains important about tragedy, then, is not its literary structure, but the sense that Western culture employs tragedy to understand itself when it is in crisis, and that the literary structure therefore comes to reflect the culture's modes of exploring and depending on the view of catharsis, its mode of confronting its crisis and upheavals. Taking this and the elements of both Greek and Elizabethan tragedies into account, we can create our own definition for modern tragedy. Modern tragedy consists of a sympathetic protagonist who belongs to any social class, high status or low status, attempts to achieve his goal with good intentions, but suffers from an inherent flaw that ultimately leads to his downfall. The fate of the protagonist should evoke pity in the audience. Additionally, modern tragedy follows the concept of character is destiny, meaning that the fate of the protagonist is solely due to his actions. This contemporary definition of what constitutes a tragedy can be applied to Death of a Salesman. For instance, Willie is a sympathetic character who exemplifies a typical middle-class American who is trying to achieve the American dream. Unlike Oedipus and Hamlet, Willie belongs to the middle class, indicating that elements such as gender, status, age do not solely evoke pity from the audience. Plus, like Oedipus and Hamlet, Willie's goal to provide for his family is good-intentioned. However, he is held back from achieving his dreams by his tragic flaw, his hubris. He has grandiose dreams of becoming rich and well-liked, but refuses to face the reality that he is not either of those things. As a result, he loses his job and is dismissed by his son. Hopeless, Willie takes his fate into his own hands, demonstrating the concept of character is fate, and decides to commit suicide in order for his family to receive his life insurance. This act generates pity from the audience because a good man who doesn't deserve to die has to kill himself in order to provide for his family. Although Aristotle's definition of tragedy has evolved over time, modern tragedy encompasses many of the elements present in Greek and Elizabethan tragedies. And throughout the centuries, tragedy still serves the same purpose: to purge us of our petty concerns and worries, by making us aware that others around us are suffering misfortunes worse than ours.